Did you know forgiveness can be the new superpower? I do. And I want to tell you my story of how I came to learn how forgiveness works for myself and for everyone else. And my catalyst is rather common. It started with a divorce almost 11 years ago now. And while divorce is common, the way I found out was not. And my youngest daughter was in sixth grade at the time. And she was visiting her grandparents in another state. And I heard my phone ring that morning and I saw that it was her. And I picked up the phone and she said, "Mom," and she was whispering. And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "I think Dad has a girlfriend." And I said, "Well, babe, why would you think that?" And she's still whispering. And I can tell I can hear it in her voice that she's very concerned. And she says, "I'm getting a lot of pictures. I'm getting a lot of text. And there's some stuff going on that I don't really understand." So I asked her, I said, "Can you send the stuff to me?" And what had happened was her iPod Touch was synced with her dad's iPhone. So my 11-year-old daughter started getting sexts and texts and pictures that she knew nothing about. And to say that I was devastated is really doesn't even cover how devastating that can be when you're realizing that your child knows this and she has to tell you that her dad is cheating. And the first thing I was shocked. I just couldn't believe it. And I'll be honest with you, I had an idea about it and I had feelings about that maybe he was doing that, but I never had any proof. And it's so interesting because women's intuition is very, very strong. But I would ask him about it and he would say, "You're crazy. There's no way." And when you don't learn through your intuition, sometimes the universe will knock you off your chair to make you look and realize what's going on. So as my daughter started sending me all these notices and all these pictures, I was absolutely mortified. You're in shock for a little bit and you really don't know which way to turn. And I was now that wife that was being cheated on. So as he came home and as we started talking about it, he couldn't deny it this time. So I knew that I had to do something about it. I couldn't live with the fact that after being with this man for 25 years, this was happening to me. And I decided, at this point, I need to get a divorce. I have 2 daughters and they're watching me. And one of the things that was so interesting is that I immediately started getting sick and I started getting ill. And I thought, okay, I have to do something about this. So I went to counselors, I went to groups, and it seemed like all we did is go over and over the same story every time I went in. And it wasn't healing me, it was bringing up old memories. And it would just get worse and worse. And then there'd be animosity and those groups were just negative. And I thought, I can't do this. I have to find something else that will heal my body and heal my soul. So I started looking into healing modalities and I became a Reiki master. I became certified in sound healing and I tried everything. And I was utilizing this for me to try to heal myself. And really nothing was working. I was still sad. I was depressed. My hair was falling out and I would scratch my skin until it bled. Now, during this time, I found out my mother had cancer. And by the time we found out, it was stage 4. So we knew that they couldn't save her. They could extend her life a little bit, but we knew eventually this was going to take her life. So she came to live with me. And towards the end of her life, we were sitting on the couch and I was holding her hand. And she looked at me and she says, they threw rocks at me. And I said, "Mom, who threw rocks at you?" She said, those kids when I was in 3rd grade. Well, I had never heard about this and I had no idea about this. And in the next breath, she looked at me and said, He slept with all my friends. Well, she was referring to my dad, and she told me so many times, I've forgiven him, I've released it, and I've let it go. But this was about 4 days before she died, and she admitted that he slept with all my friends. She had never forgiven my dad, and she had never forgiven those kids that threw rocks at her in 3rd grade. She died when she was 75. So she had carried this pain and grief and animosity with her all through her life, right up until she died. And anything you carry inside of you eventually has to manifest on the outside. And even though my mother's death was so hard, my mom was my greatest epiphany. And I decided that I was not going to let this man kill me. I couldn't do that. I had 2 girls to raise. So I went searching for something, and I didn't know what exactly it was, but I knew it had to do with forgiveness. And I knew I had to forgive myself, and I had to forgive him, because I was not willing to carry that pain inside of me for so long that it literally made me sick. What I found was this word, Ho'oponopono. And I really didn't know what it meant, but what I found out is it's an ancient Hawaiian forgiveness practice. And it consists of 4 phrases. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And when you say, I love you, you're telling yourself you love yourself. Please forgive me. Forgive me for anyone that I have hurt. Thank you. Thank you for owning your story. Thank you for taking care of yourself. And thank you for being who you are and want to take care of yourself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for anyone I've hurt or anyone who I've made feel bad about themselves. And I thought to myself, I don't know that this is going to work because it's free. And I had spent so much money on therapists. I had spent money on all these modalities. And I thought, how can this help me? Because this is free. Well, I thought to myself, I'm just going to try it. I was lost, and I was at the end of my rope, and I was just going on muscle memory every single day, remembering what I had done and getting it done that day. But I was so unhappy. I was getting so sick, and I was so miserable. So what I would do every night before I went to bed, and every morning when I woke up, is I would say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And after I started doing that about 2 weeks, I just felt a lightness. I felt as if things were just leaving my body. My stomach wasn't in knots all the time. I felt better. I had more energy. And then it dawned on me that this is what forgiveness felt like. Forgiveness felt like you were releasing all of those thick, dense emotions from your body. You were getting rid of them. And when you get rid of all of those negative emotions, you have room in your body. And what did I start replacing it with? I started replacing it with love, with joy, with happiness. And after many, many weeks, I started feeling better. Now, I wouldn't say I was exactly back to my old self, but all of a sudden I felt a little bit of joy, and I felt a little bit of lightness. And I started thinking, my gosh, this is forgiveness. This is what it feels like. And what it made me think of is loving myself. And I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't really understand that you could love yourself. Now, I loved my parents. I certainly loved my kids. And I tell people I even loved my dog, but I had never thought about loving myself. And as this continued, this feeling just grew stronger and stronger. And what I started doing was looking in the mirror and telling myself, you're okay. You're going to make it through this. You're utilizing forgiveness. And I started feeling better about myself. And I started taking better care of myself. Instead of getting my kids to school and then going back to bed, I would get up, I would take a walk, I would go to the gym and do anything I could to get me out to what used to be my normal. I didn't want those feelings anymore. And it was just amazing. I started wanting to take better care of myself. So what I would do is I would treat myself to very simple things. And I would treat myself to maybe a hot bath or a good book. And whereas before I would have felt guilty about focusing on myself and treating myself to those things, because I would always think, well, I've got to put my kids first, or I've got to put my husband first. And I was always last. And what I realized through forgiveness is that when you love yourself enough to take care of yourself, you are pouring from a full pitcher. You have the ability to pour into others and to help them while you're helping yourself. And this was an absolute epiphany for me. I had never considered doing this. And what I can tell you is that this was just a light bulb moment for me. It was an absolute light bulb. Through the power of forgiveness and forgiving myself and forgiving my ex, I wasn't condoning what he did. I was not accepting in any way, shape, or form that he cheated on me. But what I was accepting is that I was worthy of forgiveness. I was worthy of self-care. If I needed help, I went to myself. I practiced my Ho'oponopono. I practiced my self-love. And what I realized then is I was getting rid of all of that anger and hate and resentment for no one but myself. It really had nothing to do with my ex. And it's so amazing. And I tell people now, forgiveness is actually selfish because you're doing it just for you. This is something for you and you deserve it. And you never have to see that person. You never have to tell them. You never have to look at them again because it's all taken care of within yourself because you've released those burdens that someone else has placed on you. You free yourself from the chains. You free yourself from the shackles, and you live a life full of abundance. And I can tell you, self-love changes your life. It really does. And when I realized the importance of self-love, it amazed me. And what I realized is that I didn't need my ego anymore. I loved myself enough to be confident within myself, to not want to argue with people, to not want to bicker, to understand that everyone has an opinion, and that's okay if you don't believe what they do, and it's okay if they don't believe what you do. You just release it and you let it go. And what I can tell you is I would tell anybody, forgiveness is for no one but you. Forgiveness will change your life. Forgiveness can be your superpower. And it is a paradigm shift. I look back, I wish I'd known it when my mother was sick because I could have walked her through this. But my mother, it was a very selfless move that she didn't forget those things about my dad. She didn't forget those people that threw rocks at her. And through her death, she gave me life again for the second time. And I am so grateful for my mother who on her deathbed gave me the greatest epiphany of my life. She helped me want to live again. She helped me wanting to help others get to the point where I'm at now. And I am forever grateful that my life transpired in the way it does, because one of the best things that happened, it gave me confidence and it helped me understand that if I can get over such a great pain like that, you can too. Anybody can utilize this and it works. And so now I'm able to help people and assist them in their healing journey. And it's like giving someone their life back. You do not want to go through life with chains on you, with bitterness in your heart, with self-loathing of yourself. Those things will never work. And what will happen, as within, so without, you will eventually make yourself sick. And the one thing as we leave here today that I would tell you to remember for the rest of your life is that forgiveness is for you, just for you. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening. Forgiveness is for you. Thank you.